It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
On a Friday, and great to have you with us. So much to do over the next 60 minutes of this broadcast. We'll be joined by our friend Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. His weekly appearance to talk about the top stories of the week. Later in the show, Page versus the Prince, with NFL Divisional Playoff weekend being upon us. More on that coming up in just a few minutes. Another marquee NBA matchup and another blowout. We'll talk about it. But I also want to use it as an example to kind of talk about some hypocrisy that I think exists in this conversation about the NBA and the product and, you know, what's wrong with it and all of that. We'll get to that coming up as well. A potential challenger to the NBA? Where did that come from? We'll get to that as well. But we start things out in the National Football League, and Sam Yarnell is here. It is. I got to be honest, this week and the build-up to these games this weekend, which all should be really good games, despite what the odds makers might say, and despite, I mean, there's so many compelling storylines to everything in this weekend, Sam. It feels like the build-up this week has just been so slow leading into these games. And maybe it's because, you know, the matchups are consummated last week, and then we just kind of have the whole week to sort of marinate in them. I've run out of, I'm dead serious. I've run out of things to say when it comes to these four games. Goodbye, everybody. Let's just end the show. I've run out of things to say when it comes to sort of analyzing these matchups, but let's run through them real fast. Texans and Chiefs. I don't see any reason to believe there's any result that's different from the first time these two teams met. I think the Texans will fight hard. I think third quarter, it's still a game. I think the Chiefs pull away late. What do you say?
I say breaking news. For the first time in his career, Jason Page has nothing to say.
Nothing meaningful.
Goodness.
I don't.
Do you know what it takes for us to get to this point right here? Yep. For Jason Page to have nothing to say about the world of the NFL? I mean, this is a super letdown. First of all, I'll just say, like, I guess I don't agree with you in terms of the buildup, and maybe that's because my perspective's a little different. Granted, I was, for a period of about a day, boots on the ground in Western New York around Bills Mafia, hearing about how nervous they were about the rematch between the Ravens and the Bills. But I think the hype for this football weekend, Jason, is just about as big as the last two that we've had. This is one of the biggest football weekends of the year.
I'm not saying, by the way, hold on. I'm not saying the hype isn't there. I'm just saying I feel like I've run through all the sort of the storylines in this over and over again, to the point where I'm just like, can we just get to the effing game already?
All right. Okay. I hear you. Well, listen, hey, as you're probably watching this out there, we're less than 24 hours from kickoff of this weekend. So this is kind of like the nervous period, right? Right before everything gets started. To the Texans and the Chiefs, listen, this is, to me, a game that's going to come down to rest versus rust. And quite frankly, in the history of the Kansas City Chiefs, when have they ever shown rust after having that first round bye? I've said it for months on the show now because I have to come to terms with it. The Kansas City Chiefs are simply going to win the Super Bowl this year, and it starts with a win at Arrowhead against a Houston team that's coming off a big win and has a ton of momentum, but just isn't going to be able to get it done, Jason. I'm with you.
They made believers out of me to a degree, doing what they did against Jim Harbaugh's Chargers, but at the same time, this ain't the Chargers. This is a little bit different of a challenge on the road against a Patrick Mahomes who does not lose.
Patrick Mahomes is not going to throw four
interceptions
the way Justin Herbert did.
No, they don't lose in this spot. Simple as that. Commanders and Lions. Look, I had Bram Weinstein on the show, the play-by-play voice of the Commanders, earlier in the week, and we talked about it. And even he said, "Look, it's a tall task. They're realistic, you know, as people being around the team are." About, you know, what has to happen in this game. The Commanders could play a perfect game here and still lose. That's kind of my opinion on this. Is they need Detroit to come down a full level plus if they're going to be able to win this game, because the Lions are just better.
They are. I'll say this. If the Commanders can somehow just keep up with the Lions for 19/20ths of that game and get Jaden Daniels the ball last, that's how the Commanders can win. If Jaden Daniels has the ball last in a one-score game, that is how the Commanders win this game. Otherwise, you're exactly right. The Lions are better than them in just about every aspect. I don't see how they could. That said, we've seen them do it before against a top-tier team in the NFC.
I know. We don't take them seriously. We do so at our own peril. Give me a thought on this Rams-Eagles matchup real quick before we get to Ravens-Bills. Describe, sort of, if you can, in one or two words, describe to me what has to happen in this game for the Rams to pull off the upset.
Their front seven has to play up to their absolute and complete potential. This is a team that has, in the past and early in the mid part of the season, they struggled copiously against the run. They recovered later as the season went on, but quite frankly, they show their youth against the run. That front seven has to be on their toes. But I tell you what, no matter what happens in this game, the Rams are up and coming. I've been high on them all year. We made a lot of money with the Rams. Yeah. They're going to be really good next season.
Ravens and Bills, I keep saying it. I don't know what I expect to change from matchup 1 to matchup 2. I like the Ravens, but again, it takes trusting that Lamar Jackson's going to make the right play in the big moment. And we talked about it earlier in the week. That's a hard trust barrier to overcome.
I'm going to have to go full fan from here on out with my Buffalo Bills, even though, again, I believe the Kansas City Chiefs will win the Super Bowl. I'm going to take the Bills to win this game. We know the weather forecast, a chance of snow, high winds. We know Lamar Jackson's record in the very extreme cold. It's not very good. They're going to have to run the ball, and it's a different Bills defense than the Ravens saw last time. 3 starters completely healthy for the Bills that didn't play in that early season matchup that will help stop the run. I'll take the Bills, man. I love my team.
I think it's a toss-up game. I think, I'm not trying to hedge here, and I'm not trying to ride the fence. I think inside 6 minutes, it's going to be, a one-score game either way, or even a tie game either way. I'm taking the Ravens reluctantly. I wouldn't put your money on it, though. We're coming back. SportsWrap continues. Good to have you with us on this Friday. I thought we said all we could about the NFL Divisional Playoff games, but no. We've got more to say. Because Nick Ferguson is here, former NFL safety, friend of the program. He's going to hang out with us for a couple of minutes and talk about these games this weekend. I also want to get his thoughts on Deion Sanders. You can catch him on KOA Radio in Denver, all over the Denver Broncos, and college football there with the Buffaloes too. All right, Nick. The game that you're most going to be engrossed in this weekend, give it to me.
Bills, Ravens. Yeah. For me, there's a lot of exciting games this week, but that is the game. Earlier this season, the Baltimore Ravens ran roughshod over the Bills, and Josh Allen knows to get to where he wants to in New Orleans, he's got to do 2 things. He's got to beat Lamar in Baltimore, and he's got to beat those pesky Chiefs. So this is the first leg of it. He handled it last week by knocking out the Broncos 31-7. So now there's a big, tall task for him and his defense. And it's easily said than done, because Lamar has shown as though, hey, he's playing at an MVP level, but also he's got a couple of friends. Just look at Lamar as being the front man for the Beatles and everyone else playing the back row. So that's going to be the most intriguing game for me this weekend.
Yeah, and I can understand why. Tell me why, because here my big hang up in this game is Lamar Jackson in these moments has always made 1 play or 2 plays late in a game in a key moment that has prevented him from getting over this hurdle in the postseason. Why should I believe this time on the road in Buffalo, where the elements are going to be an issue, why this time in Buffalo is going to be any different?
Because offensive coordinator Todd Monken, he learned from last year's disaster. The last time we saw Baltimore facing the Houston Texans, Lamar was moving around.
Yeah, they went away from everything. They went away from everything they were.
Yeah, so when they played Kansas City, it was different.
Yeah.
Lamar wasn't moving around, but knowing as though you're facing off against another skilled quarterback who is an MVP, caliber talent in his own right, in Josh Allen, and it comes down to who can make not the first play, not the second play, but the third play. Go back to last week. This video from Hard Knocks where Coach Harbaugh is on the sideline saying, Lamar, throw it. Lamar's running around, he's juking, he's dodging, then all of a sudden he throws a touchdown. That is Lamar. That is the game between the Bills and the Ravens, and it comes down to which defense can stop the opposing quarterback. But this is my Super Bowl. Forget everything else. This is my football, my Super Bowl as a defensive player, because those two guys make it really difficult to defend.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I don't want to scapegoat Todd Monken here if the Ravens should lose. But it really does come down to the strategy. And the other big difference here is Derrick Henry. I mean, the Ravens basically said, we're going to run the ball down your throat, and they did. And I mean, they literally reached across the line and said, here's what we're going to do for the next 13 plays. We're going to run the football. And they did. And they still couldn't be stopped in those moments. To me, I think that has to be their identity in this game. And if it is, I think they find a way to scratch out a victory on the road in Buffalo. So you like the Ravens?
I like the Ravens.
All right. Sam Yarnell will not be happy, but I guess he'll have to get over it. Just before I get to the Deion stuff real quick, I like the Rams this weekend.
You do?
I do. Tell
me why.
Look, I think it's a team. You want to be playing your best football when we get to this time of the year, and it feels like to me they are playing their best football as we get to this time of the year, and I just trust Matthew Stafford and his ability in this spot, even on the road. I think they could do enough. I don't think you're going to shut down Saquon Barkley, but I feel like they could do just enough to put themselves in a position where late in the game they were able to steal it.
See, I feel a little different because Saquon is the X factor.
Yeah.
But then think about it. Last week we saw A.J. Brown reading a book to calm himself down because he only had one target. This is going to be the game where, you can actually attack down the field, attack the Rams corners. So you want to get him more involved. And then last week I saw Dallas Goedert just smash a Green Bay Packer defender, say, get the hell out of the way. This is why, for me, I'm not a gambling man, but if I were, I would put all my chips on Philadelphia in this particular game.
All right, fair enough. I can understand your sentiment there. I want to ask you about Deion Sanders, and I'll do that in just a moment. But first, a word from our friends at Credit Associates. Who's going to be the big star this weekend? Who's going to block another team for potentially reaching their Super Bowl destiny? We'll have to wait and see. Who's going to be the MVP of your finances? That's a bigger question. Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt, in over your head trying to make monthly payments? Well, there's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades. It's Halfuary with our friends at Credit Associates. With one affordable low monthly payment, Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months. What are you waiting for? It'll save you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Find out how much you can save right now. Call 1-800-747-5362 or just click the QR code below. I want to get your thoughts on, sort of what we've seen here with Deion Sanders and Jerry Jones and this dance that's taking place. The Cowboys always longing for relevancy, even when they, don't make the playoffs. They're the top of the headlines. What would it say to you if Deion left Colorado for this job?
Wow. It would say that Jerry was very convincing to Deion, but also the bigger question is, what does it say to some of the recruits that have already committed to CU? But we've seen this before. Deion wouldn't be the first person who decided to leave one job and go to another job, but leave a lot of bodies in his wake.
Yeah.
And for me, he would have to, he needs to be able to tell those families, and he needs to make a decision really soon. So those kids who've committed to CU can therefore transfer to other places, but also give his coaching staff an opportunity to get jobs, because Coach Prime has a large coaching staff, probably one of the largest coaching staffs in college football. And that's not just the coaches, it's just all the other people around. Now, I don't know in Jerry world if that would actually work, but that is something they would have to come to agreement on.
It'll be an interesting week as we continue to see how things play out in Dallas. Enjoy the playoff football this weekend, Nick Ferguson. Let's do it again soon.
Go Ravens!
We're coming back. Robert Littal joins us next. SportsWrap continues. Good to have you with us on this Friday. And if it's a Friday, that could only mean one thing. This handsome man's mug is on the screen. And I don't mean me. It's Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online, who hangs out with us every Friday on the show to talk about the top stories of the week. What's going on, Robert?
Well, it's like you said, when I come in, you know it's time to go. So it's Friday.
It's true. And you got a lot going on. We were just talking off the air. I mean, you're going to the Natty, Ohio State and Notre Dame in Atlanta. And then we've got the Super Bowl, which is, right after that. So you're going to be a busy man the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the most interesting
the happiest person, Mrs. Littal.
Yeah, well, anytime I'm not around, she's ecstatic.
All right, let's talk about the national championship game. I mean, look, I've tried to make arguments for how Notre Dame is able to win this game. We talked about it earlier in the week with Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Can you make an argument for Notre Dame in this game? If so, what is it?
Well, the way Notre Dame wins is if Ohio State loses. You know what I mean? And they basically have to play a Michigan game. I mean, we just have to be honest. I mean, they have to play down to their standards. That's really the only way. I mean, you saw glimpses of it against Texas. The penalties, the turnovers, losing their cool. Travion Henderson losing their cool, getting behind this. You have to get Ohio State behind the sticks. They have way too many weapons. If they're in 2nd and 5 and 3rd and 4, it's just too much for a defense, to handle. So unless they beat themselves, which Notre Dame is good at making teams do that.
True.
I don't see too much hope for the Fighting Irish.
I think they're going to have to take chances that you might not typically see them take to extend drives to keep Ohio State off the field, because we know what that Ohio State offense is capable of. Just obviously as capable of as their defense. But I feel like you might see situations where, just past midfield, not the greatest spot on the field, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, Marcus Freeman having to make decisions to go for it in spots where he might not typically, just to keep them off the field and try to limit the number of possessions Ohio State gets.
Well, one of the problems is Riley Leonard is not a very good quarterback in the sense of throwing the football. I mean, he seems like a good leader, a guy that, put his body on the line. Obviously, he can run, a little bit. But if it gets into a point to they're down, say 14 points, that's a problem. You have to keep this within one possession, because all the pressure's on Ohio State, and even more so because of the Michigan game. They have to win this game. If they got to this part and then would lose, it just would kind of reaffirm what a lot of people think already, about Ryan Day.
Well, that's the next question I ask you is, if they were to lose this game, are we going to hear the screams for Ryan Day's head again, given the expectations, how they've, sort of ridden this roller coaster, but now they are a prohibitive favorite to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be noise. I mean, you coach at Ohio State. There's no room, for error. 10-2, we get upset about that. So, but I think he's done enough to get people as far as firing, off of his back. But there's going to be a loud majority if he was to lose this game to say, hey, Ryan Day can get you to the precipice. He can get you almost there. And then when push comes to shove, he chokes up. And fair or unfair, I mean, that's what happens when we play with the big boys.
Well, Robert, I want to get your thoughts on a big story this week that sort of emerged. This whole idea of Maverick Carter. Look, this story kind of snuck up on me. Maverick Carter, who's LeBron James' manager, wanting to be involved as an advisor to this $5 billion investment that's being made in a league that is essentially meant to challenge what the NBA is doing, especially internationally. What are your thoughts on that? And sort of, I know LeBron James obviously plays a role in this in terms of ownership as well. LeBron has, stated he wants to own an NBA team. Is there something in here where he's trying to use this maybe as leverage to be taken seriously as potentially an NBA owner, or trying to find backing in that regard?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's going to take, LeBron has a lot of money. I mean, but it's going to take $6-7 billion to own an NBA team, and you're going to have the majority of that money to do it. And he doesn't have that. He doesn't, it's not like when Michael Jordan, bought the Hornets and you could do it for $600-700 million. He's gonna need a lot of money. But, if it's a new league and they're looking for a face of the league, I bet you we could, own a team. So maybe it's just an alternative. It wasn't a lot of information, which makes it even more intriguing.
Yeah, it does. Give me a thought on LeBron. And do so from the perspective of, a guy that's still, I was watching him this week running up and down the floor at the tender age of 40 plus here, running the floor the way he was. And he put up something interesting about, somebody saying, oh, that's the last of LeBron we're going to hear at 30. And now people saying that's the last of LeBron we're going to hear at 40. And he said, hey, man, they might be saying the same thing at 50, sort of teasing that he could play a lot longer. What is your sense as to how much longer LeBron plays?
Well, Bryce is, it was his senior day the other day, and he's going to Arizona at least for a year. So 2 more years to maybe try to play with his other son. It looks like, unless he suffers some sort of major injury, there's nothing to suggest that, he's not going to be the best player in the world anymore. But he still looks top 10, top 15. And if he's okay with that standard, he could play another 3, 4, 5 years. It looks like, barring any type of major injury.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that.
Time for him to go, though. I just want to point that out. Not necessarily because, you should retire as an individual whenever you feel like retiring. But I feel like the NBA can't quite move on to the next thing while he's still there.
And that's a major topic, and it kind of dovetails well into something I want to talk about with you coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Robert Littal is hanging out with us. He is the founder of Black Sports Online and one of the busiest human beings alive, between fatherhood, the traveling. He's a busy man, but he makes time for us every Friday on the show, and we love it. We're coming back, more with Robert Littal, a couple other topics to get into on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Continuing the conversation on this Friday edition of the show with our friend Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online. Stick with the NBA for a second. We've been having a conversation this week. I saw Adam Silver on with Colin Cowherd talking about it this week, and even before that, we were talking about this idea of, is the NBA broken, and if so, how do you fix it? And the obvious thing is the three-point line, and there seems to be some hesitancy from from Adam Silver to just simply move back the 3-point line, a fear that, that'll just bog down the paint and everybody's just going to kind of hang out in the paint. I don't think that's the case, because we see that there are guys that are more than fine with shooting it from 2 or 3 feet behind the 3-point line, Robert. So I don't necessarily buy that idea. But, look, we had a game this week where where the Nets lost by 59 in Los Angeles at Intuit Dome against the Clippers. You had a game that was billed last night as one of the big matchups, potential NBA Finals preview, that was never competitive between the Thunder and the Cavaliers. You've got all this talk about TV ratings. Should there be a greater sense of urgency for the NBA to fix whatever's wrong here?
I don't think so. They got their money. They got their new 10-year deal. Unless there's some stipulations in that deal that you have to hit certain, benchmarks, they're probably going to be comfortable with what's going on for at least another decade. I saw an amazing stat the other day. I was watching the Nuggets play somebody. I believe it was the Rockets, and they said the Nuggets were the last team in the league in 3-point shots attempted. Right? So I was like, oh, they must only shoot like 12 or 15. It said 31 attempts. And they were the last in the league at 31 attempts per game. And I don't know how you change it, because the analytics and the scoring is up, and that's what they want. It's just aesthetically pleasing. It's not as aesthetically pleasing to the eye, just because you're going to miss more 3-pointers than you do 2s.
I mean, the Celtics take 49 a game.
Wow.
More than half of their shots, Robert, are 3-pointers.
Yeah, I think one of the problem is when you watch sports, you want to feel like they're doing things that you couldn't do. All of us could jack up threes at Planet Fitness. I mean, we can swing the ball around and jack up, threes. When I watch Michael Jordan, I watch Kobe Bryant, and I watch Shaq or Hakeem Olajuwon, I can't do that, But if I watch, a random, the 8th guy on the thing just stand in the corner and shoot a 3, I'm like, well, shoot, just put me out there. Yeah, I can give me $10 million a year. I can stand in there. You give me enough time, I can make 3 out of 10.
Stand in the corner? Yeah.
I stand in the corner, make 3 out of 10, easy.
Yeah, it is, excuse me, rather perplexing. I want to ask you about Deion Sanders here coming up in just a moment, because of all this conversation with him and Jerry Jones. But first, I got to talk about our friends at Credit Associates. And what a game last night it was for the Oklahoma City Thunder, defending home court, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers, dominant from start to finish. They did it all. And just like the Thunder, taking it to the rim, shooting the threes, doing everything they did in that game. If your credit card debt has been doing a number on you, blocking your financial freedom, it's time to break through. Credit Associates can help you slam down your debt for up to half of what you owe. Think about that. Half. That's the kind of move you want to see in your financial game. Don't wait another quarter. Call 1-800-747-5362. If you have $10,000 of debt or more, call 1-800-747-5362 today. See how much you could save. Credit Associates. When it's time to make a play, they got your back. To see if you qualify for debt relief, call 1-800-747-5362 or visit creditassociates.com, or just click the link below. Deion to the Cowboys. I think the whole thing's a recipe for disaster. I think the Cowboys are a laughing stock right now from a football standpoint. I'm not talking about all the money Jerry makes with this team. I'm talking about from a football standpoint. This organization is a joke at this point. The fact we talk about them so much is a joke to me. But you can't help it. It's the car wreck that you can't turn away from.
Yeah, I always say the reason they're America's team is not because everybody in America likes them. It's because they represent what America is today. The division, drama, reality shows, capitalism, money over results. Everything that's America is definitely the Dallas Cowboys, so I understand that. So bringing in Deion Sanders, just adds, to the circus. As I told somebody yesterday, I said if they bring in Deion Sanders, if you have another team in the NFL, you might as well not watch First Take. Because then, you're not getting no Minnesota Vikings coverage anymore. But it's odd to me because it seems like Deion has the world down there in Colorado. You're in the Big 12, so it's not like you're dealing with a gauntlet of teams. He has good players coming in, and it seems to have a good firm grasp of that team down there in college football. Why leave? But maybe he knows something that we don't.
The games this weekend, 4 matchups that I find intriguing in a myriad ways. Outside of the take the Ravens and Bills and put it aside, because we've spent a lot of time on that, and it's basically a pick 'em game. Of all the games this weekend, where do you see the biggest chance for an upset?
Oh, 2 actually. I think the Commanders have a great shot.
Wow.
To go. I think that the hot wild card team is always one of my. That's the Rams. Amazing shot to go into Philadelphia. I think those 2 teams, so basically the NFC, I can see upsets happening. I don't think Houston is going to be Kansas City, and like you said, I think Baltimore, Buffalo. That's a coin flip, and especially with Zay Flowers, out, it could definitely go either way.
Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online. Go and check them out. Always great content. Follow Robert on X as well at
We have
BSO.
to stop Patrick Mahomes. We cannot let him go to another Super Bowl.
It's going to happen. I'll see you later, my friend. We're coming back. We wrap it up with Paige versus the Prince coming up in 10 minutes. Divisional playoff predictions for you in the NFL. But Sammy Arnell, first, it's something to consider on the show. Something to consider, Sammy Arnell. Why the hypocrisy? Why is it what's not good for one league is good for another when it comes to criticizing the NBA? And here's what I always try to figure this out. And look, we get it. The NFL is Teflon. We have figured this out by now. They could go shoot an old lady in the middle of Fifth Avenue and get away with it. That's just Roger Goodell could go in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot a woman in front of the NFL offices, and they'd be like, it was justified. She reached into her pocketbook for that lipstick. To me, I don't understand it other than to talk about maybe the length of the schedule, which we'll get into here. The reason I bring this up, Thunder absolutely dismantled the Cavaliers last night with no Chet Holmgren and no Isaiah Hartenstein, by the way, in that game. This after the Cavaliers beat the Thunder in Cleveland, a week ago. So the matchup, 2 best teams, big. And then I sat here and as I said, because again, we've talked a lot this week about, is there something wrong with the NBA product? Is it broken? If it is, how do we fix it? That sort of thing. And then I got to thinking, I'm going, wait a minute. I just saw the NFL, all its media partners, everybody falling all over themselves over, for an entire week about the fact that the Lions were going to play the Vikings. And it's the most wins ever combined between 2 teams to meet in the history of the NFL. And it's big. And we had a blowout. The game wasn't even competitive. Yet on Monday, we weren't talking about, man, is there a problem for the NFL? Oh, boy, what's the NFL going to do? No, instead we were talking about what's wrong with the Vikings, what's wrong with Sam Darnold. Now, what does this mean for these 2 teams going into the postseason? We were talking about the game itself. We're not doing that with the Cavaliers and Thunder after last night's game, but we did it. And I don't know, maybe we're all just so trained to be these NFL monkeys that go, NFL's great, that we just simply ignore that there are times, many times during the season, where the product just isn't that good, but the league gets away with it.
I think that, so first of all, directly about that Sunday Night Football game, the part of the narrative that was so important going into that was that game determined who is going to be the number 1 seed in the playoffs and who would get the bye, right?
Which makes it even more of a letdown, doesn't it?
Well, sure, but that letdown or not, that just contributed to the hype, right? This game's hype was because through 39 games, both of these teams had won more than 33 games, right? So that's incredible. However, it's game 40 of the regular season, right? That was the final game of the regular season, the last chance that those teams had to sort of change their playoff seeding. When we get to later in the NBA season and playoff atmospheres start to develop, and quite frankly, the product gets better and I start to watch, that's when the games will be a lot better than this, right? And if the Cavs and Thunder are both playing again in, say, late March, right, with a chance to be either conference's number one respective seed on the line, that game theoretically is going to get a ton of hype. Now, granted, it's sports, right? And there's always the letdown factor. There's always a team that just doesn't show up, like the Cavaliers didn't last night. That game was over after the first quarter, right? It was a, 20-point game at the end of the first? I don't even remember. I stopped watching after the first 10 minutes because I was like, all right, well, Shea's going to score a bunch and that's going to be that. The Thunder will blow him out. All of that said, right, there were great games already in the NFL before that Lions-Vikings blowout. You had the Bills and the Lions. You had the Ravens and the Eagles. Those were two marquee games that season. There is the general consensus, right, that Thursday Night Football is a horrible product, and that is true. But then you'll get a week 14 Thursday Night Football, the game that had 57 total points in it, and it's a barn burner. So listen, at the end of the day, we're going to have blowouts in sport. It's just part of the game. It's the opposite reaction, the equal and opposite reaction of us having these great games. But I think that it's a little bit of an overreaction on either side to say that there's a massive problem with the sport because two great teams played and one blew the other out.
I just think so many times the love for the NFL and the adulation for the NFL and the TV ratings that it provides, which pours money into the pockets of these leagues, I think it oftentimes prevents the conversation from taking place about, the fact that over the course of an NFL game, there's actually less action during an NFL game than there is in just about any other sport that you watch on television. I think it sometimes all of that will go against the idea of the officiating being so bad. This league overcomes everything, it seems. It succeeds in spite of itself in so many ways. Like I said, to me, it's just truly Teflon in that regard. There are so many things that we talk about off the air, and I guarantee that the powers that be at some of these big sports networks talk about off the air that never really get said on the air. Now, in our case, it's just because we got an hour every day and we're trying to jam so much in. And I'm not going to waste it on, how bad is officiating. But in the cases of these other networks that are 24/7, it just feels like sometimes they're ignoring the problems of the league. We're coming back. Page versus the Prince, NFL Divisional Weekend. It's next. All right. It's just about time. Put the wraps on this baby for a Friday. Don't forget, SportsWrap Weekends available on many of these same affiliates. If not, check your local listings for time and schedule. It's a 30-minute wrap-up show of everything we talked about throughout the week. It was fantastic. Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it. We are on all of them. Sam Yarnell, without any further delay, it is a Friday on the show, and that could mean only one thing.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for the weekly face-off for sports betting bragging rights. It's Paige versus the Prince on the Sports Wrap.
Strike up the band. Only a couple more times we'll hear the band this year. Well, this season, until we get to September. It's Paige versus the Prince, NFL Divisional Playoff round. There's only 4 games to pick, so we're picking all the same ones. We are going head-to-head here, Sam. But I suspect, and I don't have any idea what you're picking, just so people know. I suspect we're probably going to agree on it, probably 2 or 3 of these games.
So just a little peek behind the curtain here. We'll break that fourth wall. Normally, Thursday nights, Friday mornings, I'll be making my picks, doing my research. I'll send Jason during the regular season my card, my 4 picks, so that he knows to stay away and pick different games. So we're not giving you the same picks twice every which way. We don't do that when the playoffs start. Both of us come into this completely blind. I have no idea what he's doing.
Naked as a jaybird.
He has no idea what I'm doing.
Wearing my birthday suit. Yep. You want to go first or you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
So
you won the coin toss.
Texans Chiefs. Right, we'll go in chronological order, I presume.
Yeah, why not?
Listen, my best bet in this game is going to be a little bit hard to find. You'll have to search your sports book to see if they have it. I like the Kansas City Chiefs first quarter team total under 6.5. You have to lay minus 110 juice. This is a bet that I've made a lot of money personally betting this year. This is a team that tends to start pretty slow. And listen, coming off the bye, I'll just take my chances that they're just a touch rusty and can't get into the end zone during that first quarter. Even if they can, they've had kicker issues all season. Maybe that extra point goes wide right or doinks off one of the uprights. In terms of betting with Jason Page's money, though, I'd go Texans plus 8.5. This Kansas City team has not covered big spreads all year long. What is to tell me that they're going to start right now? I liked it at 9.5. I love it at 8.5. Give me Houston in this one, Jason.
All right. I got to tell you, as much as I love the Texans and what they did last week, I'm feeling very good about Kansas City. I'm feeling even better about the under. It's going to be frigid temperatures in Kansas City. I don't know if it's going to be as bad as when, Andy Reid had snot sickles coming off of his beard and stuff like that. But I suspect in this game that you're not going to see a lot of points scored. I love the under in this game. That is my favorite pick. Under 41.5 between those two teams. If you forced me to bet a side on it, I'll go Kansas City minus the 8.5. If you forced me to. But I like my favorite bet in this game is the under at 41.5. Commanders Lions, Sam Yarnell, what you got?
My best bet in this game, Jason, is going to be Terry McLaurin to go over his receiving prop. Detroit struggled with wide receiver ones this season. I think Terry and Jaden's connection has been good all season. Listen, I'm going to have a party with this game and bet the over. It's a fast track up there in Detroit, and both of these teams can provide a lot of offense. We'll call it a party over of the week. I like the over in Washington and Detroit.
I'm with you on it. And we've seen Detroit get out to big leads and then sort of coast and play to the scoreboard, which is why I think you could get a lot of points in that game. I agree with you. 55.5, run with the over. We will have a party. Rams, Eagles. Will they be partying in Philadelphia? It's Eagles minus 6.5, the total 43.5, Sam.
This one's tough for me. If you can find a Jared Verse tackles plus assist prop out there, I really like that. I think he'll have a lot of opportunities against Saquon Barkley in the run game. I think my best bet in this game, Jason, is gonna be the under 43.5, which kind of pains me to take, but we know both these teams are very, very capable of running the football.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I trust Jalen Hurts to put up a ton of points. I like the Rams. I love the under.
It's like rooting for divorce at a wedding. Rams and Eagles, I will go Rams plus 6.5. Everybody knows how I feel about this Rams team. I've been high on them since well before the start of this postseason. Sam and I both really like them. I'll go Rams plus the 6.5. Last but not least, Ravens and Bills, Sam Yarnell. Ravens and Bills, minus 1.5 are the Ravens in this game. 51.5 is the total.
It'll be a pick 'em by kickoff. Get on the Bills while you can. That's where my money will be. They started at even money. They've been bet down to minus 104, which doesn't quite make sense considering more of the money is on the Ravens and more of the bets are on the Ravens. It's like the sports books know something, people, because they do normally. Give me the Bills.
I'm going with the under 51.5, Sam, because I don't want anything to do with having to pick a side in this game. If you force me to, I will take the Ravens, but only reluctantly so. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for us. Thank you to you, Sam Yarnell. Thank you, Robert Littal. Thank you, Nick Ferguson. Thanks to you for watching. I am Jason Page. Enjoy the playoff games this weekend. We'll see you all back here next week.